The Annie Altman Show podcast and other projects are field research for the Humani. Hey, it's Annie. Please check out and share the website, Patreon, and Etsy to help support these projects and my self-project. The Humani is a one-woman show about how no one ever fully figures out how to be a human being, how there's themes of the human being experience organized into 10 C words connected by the theme of connection, and how discussing these themes we all experience somehow is my best idea to contribute to minimizing unnecessary human suffering through maximizing resource equity. That was a lot of words. Maybe note when you hear the words connection, consciousness, choice, change, compassion, communication, community, creation, charge, curiosity, and/or courage in this episode. That's also a lot of words. Here's some more.
Of self-expression, and also I feel very passionate about sharing my story as a loss survivor, because I feel sometimes that part of the equation is never really, they tell stories of suicide, but they don't really tell the story of the survivor. And so that's why I really feel strongly about telling my story and reaching out and sharing it, because I think talking is important.
Yes. Yeah. How else are we going to know what's going on in someone else's consciousness without them sharing it?
Exactly. And that's what we have to share, is who we are. And it's unusual. It's different because we're all different, and how we look at things is different. And so even though maybe you may not see things in the same way, but sometimes if you do hear somebody else, I firmly believe that people have something to say that we might need to hear.
You could have all the money in the world, but if you're not happy, you're not happy, right? But people never forget how you make them feel.
I love that quote.
And I'll prove that, right? When I was a child, I used to go to my grandma's house, which is like a block up the street, and my grandma would let me stay at her house on a Saturday night. And she would let me have 2 to 3 extra bowls of ice cream. You know, the Neapolitan, the 3 spumoni type ice cream?
Grandchildren can do no wrong, my grandma says.
I agree with that one. And I go for ice cream now down on Larchmont or somewhere, and it takes me back to that moment. That feeling of just sitting in front of a warm fire while it's snowing outside, watching TV and watching the ice cream melt and eat it, and then go back for more.
I knew that I was isolating, and that I was just depressed, and really not being, and I knew why. I knew why I was choosing this path to cope, but I couldn't stop myself. And I knew why those neuronal pathways were burned so deeply. It's because that's how I coped as a child. That's what I did. That's where comfort lied, was going to sleep. There was no work had to be done if you were sleeping. Nobody was bothering you if you were sleeping. My family, big time nappers. Got into trauma therapy, and just the talk about what is your belief system? What do you believe? I believe that I'm a piece of shit. Okay, when's the first time you felt this way? Okay, when's the most intense time you felt this way? When's the last time you felt this way? And then my therapist walks me through that process. We do EMDR, bilateral stimulation. And
also, I joke that my nickname in high school was Megativity, but it really was true. Oof. Right? It's one of those things that really sucks to hear, but it also kind of can shake you out of yourself and go, wow, is this the person I want to be? Is this what I want to, is this how I want to be living? And
it's great, too. Great joke.
Right. It's also I can laugh at myself now because that was 20 years ago, but it was painful at the time, but the reason it was painful is because there was something true about it. That things don't, if somebody comes up to me and says you have green skin, I'm not going to be hurt by that because I just know it's not true. But the negativity thing hooked me because I was they're not wrong. So it started with, I have got to take myself less seriously or I'm going to give myself a coronary. It was a little bit.
There's no intentionality around groupthink. Groupthink is oh, well, everybody else said it, so I'm going to say it too. And now boom, we're all operating at lowest common denominator. Whereas group mind is an experience of stepping in with love, with trust, with playfulness, and with intention, so that we can access something that is naturally going to be beneficial, which makes it easier to trust it. And I've had a number of experiences of being in improv classes where like the group mind takes over, everybody feels it, and a couple people freak out. They're like, whoa, okay. Oh, that was weird. Oh my, I didn't know I was going to say that. Oh, that was so weird. Oh, anything could happen right now. And it's like, yeah, well, anything can happen. And what's going to happen is all good, because that's our intention. We've already set our intentions. Now we're just going to ride them into glory. Yeah. Which I think is very challenging.
Mission, your overall why, which I like to think, what is your why? It's not what you're supposed to be doing if it doesn't align. I think that's the biggest lesson I've been teaching myself, is that everything is connected, and that it can be connected. It doesn't have to be separate. You don't have to have separate outlets for what you're doing. You can have it all work in some way, and it's going to be fine, because there are people out there who are going to align with that, and they're going to be like, this is what I've been looking forward to doing, because this makes sense. This is something that not a lot of people are doing nowadays. People are just having separate lives, like their work life and then their personal life, or they're having their project life and their like freelance life separate from like their job. And it's like, why not have them all connect? Why not have that whole sense of happiness in everything? Why does it have to be sad in some places and happy in others? Which is fine, because that is life, it can't all be happy all the time, but why not have something that makes you feel fulfilled and conscious in everything that you're doing?
The best fit for them, I might say, hey, I noticed this isn't really, working for you. I see some, maybe alternatives that would be better. And so it's not something that at the get-go I can say, this is exactly what it's going to be like, because part of my job is listening to what that person needs and kind of making it more organized, because they might throw a bunch of stuff at me and not really understand or know what they're trying to find. And it's part of my job to arrange that in a way that is approachable, and to basically, if you think of like a tangled mess of yarn, that I'm unraveling the yarn and creating it into these neat little balls. But in order to do that, they have to share the messy, tangled yarn with me first. And I don't see that until we start working together.
A way to integrate the point we're talking about, which is when you're telling those stories about who I am based on past experience, that's not leaving space for who you are in this moment. You're like bringing that past construct, that past story, and replaying that. But if you become aware of those past programs, you come to a transition point. Every story has transitions. Every story has points where things change. So you move from the story of I am this past story to I am changing that past story. And then eventually, as time progresses, that story of like the change transition point will fall away to I am this new thing that I've always wanted to be. Like I am my fullest expression. And then in that, the past even begins to fall away. Like I am this, and I have always been this. It's not like negating the past. It's just not telling that story. It's not giving power to it anymore.
People, they say that pain is the touchstone of growth, of all growth. I believe that that's true. Like, these things force us, to look at things. I wouldn't want to look at these things if I wasn't forced to. Illness forces you to look at. We were having this conversation earlier that like healing brings up everything unlike itself, and that truly to heal from one thing asks you to look at all of the other things, right? So to heal wholly, right? And so, yeah, Lyme, and the other co-infections for me have been, teachers.
Put astrology into that box because they're kind of like, okay, well, believe us, like it is real. It's a science. It's a pseudoscience or whatever. We're like, we don't have to convince it of that. We can just use it as astrology as a language and a system of understanding and of of people. That's it. It's fine, and it can be that.
Because like also what's really cool is because like astrology is nuanced. Like astrology is these, to me, the combination of all these other sciences and arts. Like it's a combination of things, and once we start to really be able to appreciate that it's not just one thing, it's a combination of things that uses the sciences and like works very well with the sciences. Like I don't know. I don't think that astrology needs to be a science. Like it can use the science, it can use the structure. Like it's such a frivolous like conversation because we already know that it works for people.
Hey, thanks for sticking around till the end. Please check out theanniealtmanshow.com and also patreon.com/theanniealtmanshow if you're able and interested in donating $1 or more per month to these projects. Non-dollar ways to share value includes and is not limited to sharing anything, the podcast, any YouTube video, any blog post, any social media account, subscribing, following anywhere, rating or reviewing anything, sending any feedback or ideas, and or connecting me with people for the podcast or other projects you feel would enjoy this work. In my opinion, word of mouth is the only quote real advertising, so here I am using words from my mouth.